So, the first Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ, he came and he was told, Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir, stand and warn the people. So now he came back. Khadija radiallahu anh was the first person he came and spoke to. And obviously she immediately became a Muslim. Obviously if we look at the Seerah books, we find the first Muslim was A, B, C and D. There's 4 people generally given as the first Muslim. Different books will say different things. Again, like we mentioned right at the beginning, how do we look at Seerah? It's not like Hadith where it's very vigorous, the chain checking. The narrations are a little bit more relaxed. You know, you get a lot of it. Sometimes you don't have any chain at all. It's just whatever the author's written, you have to trust him. So whether you trust him or not, it's debatable. So the authors write 4 people: Khadija radiallahu anh, Ali bin Abi Talib, Zayd bin Haritha, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, Abu Bakr Siddiq. First 3 we know are family of the Prophet ﷺ: Khadija, Ali, and Zayd. One person is always missed out, which is Waraka bin Nawfal. We'll come to him in a minute. So he came to.
Some people say it's the second one.
So he came to Khadija radiallahu anh, and when he went there, we done this last week, that she gave him great support and she gave him a lot of praise as well. But then she took him to Waraka, and Waraka said to the Prophet ﷺ that you are a true prophet, the true angel came to you, and he accepted, that he's the prophet. And most Seerah books across most sects accept this, and nearly everyone says that he's the second person to become the Muslim. And even afterwards, there's one narration where the Prophet ﷺ says that he saw Waraka bin Nawfal in Jannah as well afterwards. So this is the first thing that we find. Then we have Ali bin Abi Talib. The thing is, we spoke about Khadija radiallahu anh quite a lot. So Ali is one person we haven't spoken about at all really. Last week in Friday, when we were speaking about Hussein radiallahu anh, we briefly touched upon his lineage to some extent. So Hussein was obviously the son of Ali radiallahu anh. Ali radiallahu anh had 3 famous brothers. He's the son of Abu Talib. So Ali bin Abi Talib. So the son of Abu Talib, he's got a brother called Aqil, who we spoke about a lot on Friday. Then he had obviously Talib, and he had another brother called Ja'far. So Ja'far bin Abi Talib became a Muslim early. We'll probably do him in a couple of weeks when we speak about the first Muslims. Ali radiallahu anh, he was actually living under the supervision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Khadija. He was like almost their son. He was still about 10 at that time. He was brought up by them. Abu Talib was very poor. He wasn't very fine. He wasn't that rich. He wasn't like, he didn't get much wealth at that time. So now he had 4 sons. So the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of the family, they stepped in to help him. They said, you've got 4 sons, let us take one. We did mention this before as well. So the Prophet ﷺ took Ali radiallahu anh, and he's now living with the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija. This is what happened. Now Abu Talib had 3 other sons. So we had Ali, who became a Muslim, Ja'far, who became a Muslim very early, Aqil, who we mentioned in last week's Jummah a lot, we'll come to him in a minute. He became Muslim after Khaybar, like 7 years after Medina. That's about lots of years. That's about 20 years after the Prophet ﷺ first came. So about 20 years after the initial call. And the third brother, Talib, he didn't become a Muslim. Again, he wasn't like a very strong enemy of Islam. But he did fight against the Muslims in the Battle of Badr. So when the Battle of Badr was happening, so obviously the Muslims went out to intercept the caravan. Then the people from Mecca came to defend the caravan. So he was in this group that came to defend the caravan. But when the caravan escaped, for those of you that know the story, you'll understand what I'm saying. When the caravan escaped, he came back to Mecca. He said, there's no need for fighting. Even though the battle still happened. So certain of them were like, we're going to have a fight anyway, just for the sake of fighting, even though there's no need anymore. So they had the fight, but he came back, and some stories mention that he was never found again. So when he came back from this battle, that's the last anyone ever saw of him. No one knows what happened to him. So he didn't become Muslim. Aqil also fought in Badr against the Muslims. He fought in Uhud, and obviously he became Muslim in Khaybar 6 years after the Medina life. So he was against the Muslims for quite a while. And then he became Muslim after Khaybar. Aqil, the reason we're mentioning him on Friday, for those of you that were paying attention, was because Aqil was the father of Muslim bin Aqil. And he was the one who Ali sent to Kufa to find out the situation of Kufa before the massacre of Karbala. For those of us that was here on Friday, will understand what that means. But Aqil was therefore the cousin of Ali radiallahu anh. So remember, so we have Ali and Aqil, who are brothers. So the brothers of each other. Ali and Aqil are brothers, sons of Abu Talib. The third brother is Ja'far, who was also a very early Muslim. But Ali and Aqil are brothers. Then Ali has a son, Hassan and Hussein and a few others, but Hassan and Hussein mainly. And Aqil has a son called Muslim. So then Hussein sent Muslim to Kufa. Remember, Hussein was in Medina and Mecca. He was in that Hijaz area. And then he sent Aqil to investigate. So this is just the brief, this is the family tree of the Prophet ﷺ. It gets confusing further on. The Shias, obviously, they take Ja'far and Ali radiallahu as the Imams. It gets very confusing with the Shias because the Imams sometimes you think it's this Ja'far, but Ali radiallahu anhu's son Hussein, their sons had very similar, some of them are called, we all know Zainul Abidin, Ja'far, they had similar names to their parents. So the Shia's Imams sometimes are not the Sahaba, they're like the grandsons, it's quite far off. So obviously they don't really believe our story anyway, but this is just an overview. So we have Abu Talib, 4 sons. Ali radiallahu anhu was the first to become a Muslim. Why was he in the household? Because Abu Talib was poor. So these 4 sons, the Prophet ﷺ took one of them and looked after him, brought him up, fed him, gave him accommodation. All of these things were taken care of. That's why he was there. When he became Muslim, he saw the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija praying Salah. When he saw this, he asked them what they're doing, and the Prophet ﷺ presented Islam to him. And he said, I'm going to consult with my dad first before I become Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ said he didn't want this to get out too much. So he said, don't tell your dad, it's up to you, you decide. And then some say that he kept his Islam hidden for several months before his dad even found out. And then his dad saw him praying outside. And then that's when his dad found out, but his dad didn't really. Abu Talib obviously was a big supporter of Islam, even though he didn't become Muslim. So that's Ali radiallahu anhu. Very young age, became a Muslim, and his whole life, we can spend another whole hour talking about his life, but we'll do that later inshallah. Zayd bin Haritha, we've already done him in a lot of detail. We know so much about him. He's the only Sahabi mentioned in the Quran by name. And there's many other things. Up to these 3, Khadija radiallahu anha, Zayd bin Haritha, Ali, all in the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Zayd, remember, was his slave. So this is the household of the Prophet. Then we come out of the household and we notice the first person is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And this is where we find the understanding that if you look within the family, most people explain it like this. The first woman was Khadija radiallahu anha. The first child was Ali radiallahu anhu. And then the first slave was Zayd bin Haritha. And the first free man was Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And this is generally the first 4 converts. All of them pretty fundamental to Islam. Very important proponents, all of them. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, we've not mentioned him so far. But again, we know he's not mentioned by name in the Quran, but he's mentioned by pronoun, because Allah speaks about idhuma fil ghari, thani athnain idhuma fil ghar, the 2 of the 2. Thani, the second of the 2 that were there. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr were in the cave, and when the kuffar came and they were trying to stop them escaping. But again, he's mentioned in the Quran, very respectful, quite rich. He freed a lot of so he was very influential. And we'll see, even in Seerah, we can't have Seerah without him. It just doesn't make sense. So many important things happen because of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. That picture would have a big piece missing. The puzzle would have a big piece missing if Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's name was not mentioned in Seerah. He done so much for Islam, especially at that beginning period. And then we can say all of these names individually, but together we realize the force that they made. Together, when they came together, the force that they made, the Islam that they made, the power that they gave to Islam, because of the unity they had. And this is what we find from them. In fact, these first few years they was focused on developing the unity of the Muslims. Now this last story which we're going to mention today is slightly later. We've got something else to do. Obviously Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he converted four or five very, very important people to Islam almost on his first day, and these were very influential people, but we'll come to those next week. Amr bin Abasa radiallahu anhu, he came from Yemen. He was living in Yemen, and he said that he wasn't liking the idea of worshipping many gods. So he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He heard about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that somebody in Makkah is saying worship one God. So he came to Makkah to find out more. So when he came to Makkah, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and says, I want to become Muslim, and he asked all these questions, very long conversation. Eventually he said, I want to become Muslim. And what we find, the Prophet ﷺ said that right now you can't become a Muslim. It's very, very hard for you. And one of the main reasons the scholars give, the Prophet ﷺ at that time was trying his best to contain the news. He wasn't making an open declaration. He wasn't going around everywhere telling people. It shows the pragmatism. So now, certain times, we don't have to go around always saying things loudly, or certain beliefs. We don't have to. If people are going to be offended by certain things you say, you don't have to go around saying them. If you don't like a certain type of people or a certain group of people, you don't have to go and tell them that you don't like them. There's many people that don't like you, but you don't like it when they tell you. So again, it's the same thing. If you were living in, those of us that are a little bit older, just before the Cold War didn't happen, after that area, and you look in 1970s, after that 1980s, 1990s, when Russia started invading the likes of Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and all these countries which have funny names now. When Russia invaded all these countries and communism was prevalent, they were originally Muslims. Imam Bukhari was born in Uzbekistan, which was run by the communist regime of Russia. But you're not allowed to have a beard, you're not allowed to look like a Muslim. In fact, while in my lifetime, I saw people from Uzbekistan, before going for their passport photo, they had to shave their beard off. He had a very nice sunnah beard, but before going for his passport, he had to shave his beard off. So these kind of regimes, still, obviously, we all still know about China, and to an extent Russia as well, some of the laws which they enforce. So obviously, if you were there, you wouldn't deliberately go and cause trouble for yourself. So the Prophet ﷺ here, there was a environment of hostility to Tawheed. If you call to one Allah, you're going against the norm. So because you're going to be hostilely treated if you call to Tawheed, he didn't decide to come out and cause trouble to everyone and always say it to everyone's face immediately. There was a pragmatic approach to this. First, now this Amr bin Abasa came, the Prophet ﷺ had 10-15 followers maybe at this time. But he didn't say to him, join us, and come around, we'll go and, give dawah to everyone. He said, let's take it slowly. First we'll get victory, then you come back, then it'll be easy for you. So the Prophet ﷺ, the first approach was a pragmatic approach. It wasn't, let's go out, all guns blazing. Like in this country, there's certain sects as well which believe that we have to call for a Muslim Khalifa to be established in this country. So these kind of things which essentially, the Prophet ﷺ didn't come in Makkah and say, we need a Muslim Khalifa, we need Tawheed. He didn't even call for Tawheed openly at that time. This person he came, it's Amr bin Abasa, the specific reason he singled out the Prophet ﷺ and came from Yemen to Makkah was because of Tawheed, the very one fundamental of Islam. But the Prophet ﷺ said, for now, just come back afterwards. Because at the moment we haven't started yet, we haven't got any strength. You're going to find it very difficult to do anything. So the Prophet ﷺ developed himself, and we'll see next week how he got this small group of people united together, and throughout obviously Seerah, 23 years, how in 23 years he went from one person, his wife, a little 10-year-old boy, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, to ruling the whole of Hijaz and conquering Makkah and all of these kind of things in 23 years. Most of us are more than 23 years old. So it just depends. It shows how much a person can achieve in that kind of life. So that's so basically these 3 years that happened, they happened in the secret call, and we'll just look into them in a bit more detail. Mainly, this Islam was made up from the Sahaba. Seerah doesn't exist without the lives of the Sahaba. So this original part will just be looking at the lives of the Sahaba. Who were the Sahaba? And if we look at this list here, Ali radiallahu anh, Khadija radiallahu anh, Zayd bin Harith, Abu Bakr Siddiq, all four of them, we could have 1 hour for each of them easily, and we could just speak about what they achieved, how much they sacrificed for Islam, how they helped Islam, and how pivotal all 4 of these were to Islam. We could just talk about these 4, and that would be 4 weeks gone. But obviously we have time limits, unfortunately. So just to understand that's how pivotal the Sahaba were. So we can give all the Sahaba time, and we also should have an understanding of how much the Sahaba done for Islam as well, and have a love for them, increase our love for them. There's questions at the bottom, inshallah, we can do that at home. Just to mention one, I think inshallah next week, on Wednesday, unfortunately I'm not going to be able to be here. I'll tell you the reason as well, inshallah. Obviously I've only been in Colchester for a while, but I think before I came there was a project set up called the Colchester Alliance, which was set up by, I think one of our committee members tried very hard for this. The mosque, I think, invested in this as well. And the aim of it was to come together and be able to lobby and to try and get results, try and get something done. So the alliance obviously means to come together. So the Colchester Alliance now, the Muslims, obviously they had a part in there, and obviously the mosque had its own delegates, and then recently it's all gone a little bit quiet with the representation. So the next week is their meeting on the Wednesday, it falls at this time, and the meeting is about how we can go forward. And obviously the aim is to take all of the people into consideration. So now again, just moving on from Seerah, we see the Prophet ﷺ in his life, this Hilful Fudul, which we all learnt about, for those of us that remember, which was the alliance which was made to the weak people, the people that don't have a voice, to give them a voice, people that don't really talk, to give them a voice, to allow them to speak publicly. This is something very, very important. And we find this from the Seerah. Before the Prophet became a Prophet, he was doing these kind of things. And the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith mentions that if I was, even today as a Prophet, if I was to go back in time, I would still participate in Hilful Fudul. I would participate in that alliance, even though the alliance was made with mushrikeen. The alliance was made with the non-Muslims. So even today, living in Colchester, so the Colchester Alliance, to be honest, I don't know much about it, I'm kind of making it up as I go along, but the Colchester Alliance, it was established before I came here. I wasn't really part of the establishing of it. Obviously our chairman, he was mainly involved in this, and there's a lot of effort's been gone into it, and now we're into about 2 years of it.
I never heard of it before.
I think the aim of it is to try and get people who don't have a voice to try and have a voice.
So long living in here.
So the aim is to get 10 Muslims to also represent the masjid. So we have some representation from the masjid, some representation from the university, some representation from the CICC as well. So we'll have this, varied representation. So again, the meeting is going to be next Wednesday, inshallah. So if any brothers want to come, again, this is an opportunity. It's something we can come to. And if you look at the Prophet, if you look at his English. So if you look at
this only for Muslim or all the different religion.
It's for different
Arabic.
Mostly they always speak Bangladesh. Yeah, that's why.
That's a point.
I came with Mohammed one day and other day. They were speaking Bangladesh. So we just
So just to explain a little bit, it seems that Abdul Rashid hasn't really understood what I'm talking about. So this is an organization. It's general. It's run. It's kind of supported mainly by the council of Colchester. So you have 10 Muslims, 10 people from the church, 10 people from a different church, 10 people from different communities, from the Indian community, from the whatever communities they have, to get a representation from everyone. So now from the Muslims we need 10 representatives, so that they can actually see that there's a representation. If only one person turns up, it's not really a representation, it's just one person who gets paid enough to go. So we try and so the aim is to get 10 people. Yeah, so we're gonna the uni students will be back by next week, so we may get 1 or 2 from there. Maybe from another organization we get 1 or 2, but hopefully from the masjid, because alhamdulillah we're so active, we'll try and get 3 or 4, 4 or 5. Anyone who's interested, inshallah, let me know, so we can go to this, inshallah. So if you're interested, let me know, inshallah. So it'll be next Wednesday. I'll let you know, inshallah. Obviously I don't want everyone turning up. So it's going to be somewhere in Colchester, obviously. It's not too far away, but it's in Colchester. And then if we go there, inshallah, the aim is to try and, obviously we learn Seerah, but sometimes we don't internalize much of Seerah. If you look at this pragmatism of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ didn't stand up and say, I want Islam fully enforced now today, otherwise I'm not happy. Sometimes you have to go through avenues and channels. This Colchester Alliance, from what I know about it, the very little I know about it, it goes through avenues and channels which allows us to have a voice. So now our voice isn't to go and protest outside the council offices and say that we want a bigger mosque or whatever we want. It's to give ourselves the opportunity that in the future when we need something, we have properly represented ourselves in the proper avenues, so that when the time comes we can actually get the support which we need and we can get the things that we need done. That's the alliance, yeah. So then when you have an alliance, you have 100 people altogether maybe. So all 100 people now have a big voice, a big influence. So the influence is developed like this. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. So I genuinely want people from here to show an interest in this, inshallah. Hopefully 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5, whoever's interested, inshallah. It's a Wednesday night. If you can give, it's just going to be, this is going to be about 6:30 I think it starts. So it's going to be 6:30 starting. And if we can start, inshallah, and then we can build on this.
What was the Maghrib?
Maghrib, don't worry, we'll go through and read. Yeah, we'll hopefully be able to, we can read in the prayer room or something. So, obviously the prayers, we'll make sure we pray and everything. We'll still be Muslims, it's okay. Just because we're in the university.
It's around time, isn't it?
So, inshallah.
So make sure that Salah goes on. They might come join us.
So this is important. So just to keep this in mind, inshallah, that's just the one thing that trying to engage with the wider community as well. This is something which Muslims, alhamdulillah, Colchester is good. Most Muslims in London and Manchester and Birmingham, they fail at this very badly. They have no friends who are Muslim. They've never spoken to, like, white people are like an alien species to them. So alhamdulillah, living in Colchester, that's not happened to us. We still have, most of us probably have a lot of friends. We speak to a lot of people who aren't Muslim. But this event proves that we have a desire to fully engage. So it has many benefits. So obviously I don't want to sit here and talk about it too much, not in a job, but if somebody's interested, inshallah, it's a beneficial thing. And considering we're studying Seerah, it's something which relates quite well to what the Prophet ﷺ was doing. What was his sunnah, and how pragmatic he didn't go straight away, we want this. First he took the means. First he got his support base. Somebody came and said, I'm going to become a Muslim, and he said, go back to Yemen and just calm down. Just not now, it's going to be too hard for you. Afterwards, I'll have a team. When I've got my alliance, when I've got my team, then I'll have strength. When I'm victorious, then come back. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ worked. He worked through stages. The thing is, the reason we never do this is because the stages are very, very hard. This stage, it's not very exciting. To go to a meeting on Wednesdays, it's not particularly, you're not going to come back from the meeting having conquered Colchester. But it's stage one, it's step one. The reason we never get to the end destination is because we don't like these boring stages. We don't like to go to the meetings. We don't like to sit around and discuss things. We don't like to work and discuss things with other people. And because it takes effort. So sometimes we don't like to do that, but we want to see lots of results. Sometimes this is part of the effort. This is what we're actually mukallaf and charged of doing. But anyway, inshallah, if people are...
Inshallah, I'll come.
Okay, inshallah. So whoever's interested, inshallah, please do let me know, inshallah. It'd be very good to have people there, inshallah, and having us and having that support there.
Let us know where.
Definitely, inshallah. It's in the university, I'll let you know. The university is a big place, but I'll let you know the exact room, inshallah, if you really want to come. And definitely, inshallah, I want to see some more people as well, inshallah. So, oh my God. Inshallah,
We can
inshallah.
go together.
Okay, inshallah. Inshallah. Now seriously, inshallah. So please do let me know for the other brothers.
We can go together from here.
Definitely, inshallah. Okay. So let me know, inshallah, so we can get the names. So inshallah, we'll do Jamaati style tashkeel afterwards, inshallah. But the main thing I want to say is that we're not gonna have this next week. So so we could do Tuesday. I think Tuesday you work. Monday you work. Monday as well? Okay, inshallah, we'll miss next week then, I think, inshallah. Sheikh Muhammad is going to be Tuesday. So who can make Tuesday? Anyone got a problem with Tuesday? You can?
I don't have problem.
Inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll do Tuesday then, inshallah, next week. So if everybody keeps that in mind, inshallah, so next week this will be on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, inshallah. Virginia, is that okay with everyone, inshallah? Can everyone register this? It's quite important. Please don't turn off we're here on Wednesday. So next week will be Tuesday, inshallah.
Thursday.
Tuesday next week, inshallah. Oh, okay, inshallah. Just
Make it after is that possible?
No. It will be too late for
I think after.
people they will. Maybe later on when the winter time comes.
Yeah. I think I'm going on holiday soon as well. So I think after that we'll just have it after Isha when I come back. Inshallah.
When the time goes back. 7:30 is Isha. October, end of October.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, it's good that people have woken up and people are speaking. Sometimes, it's not just about learning sometimes. When we come to the masjid, more than anything I say, the effect on you will be how you feel. Does that make sense? How you feel? Do you feel welcome here? Do you feel like you're welcome to participate in a debate? Do you feel like you've achieved something? Do you feel like your question's been answered? Sometimes I'm very rude, so I make you feel very unwelcome. But generally, hopefully when you talk and when you answer the question, then generally you'll feel welcome with everyone else.
We should make our own alliance, right?
So, yes.
Last week, I want to ask a question here. This week. So
Go on, sure.
yeah, my question is, as you said, why laughing, man?
Before you ask you last question, we waited 7 days for that.
How you forget it? He said some people you don't talk. But it's sunnah. He said if you don't have something to talk, it's better to keep quiet. What about that sunnah? They want to ask about that. Some people don't talk, and you are saying you have to be socialized.
So the hadith is man samata.
Yeah, if you
Naja.
have something to say to anybody, you can keep quiet.
Yeah. So then again, the Prophet ﷺ had his own sometimes he would say things which were complete jokes. Sometimes they were, like for example, some of the jokes he came out with, they weren't very true, they weren't like very beneficial for everyone, but it was, as in, so we can't really say it wasn't beneficial because he had his own hikmah behind it. Not everyone sees the hikmah always. Everyone has a nature.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So now, can I relate to everyone's nature? My aim should be to be able to come on everyone's nature. As an imam, obviously, it's doubly hard, but for an average person, it's a little bit different. For me, I have to come to everyone's nature. I have to change myself. So if one of our elders come, we have to respect our elders. If somebody comes who's talks too much, not here today. Someone talks too much, you just have to listen to them. And you say, yes, mashallah, mashallah, very good. And some people, mashallah, everyone has a different nature. Some people, you just have to get used to everyone and be able to respect everyone and make people feel welcome. But as an individual, when you're speaking to someone else and he's speaking to someone else, you have to learn everyone's nature. And slowly you learn more and more. And then you learn how to give people that respect. And you can say things which are interesting. Instead of saying, how are you? You can ask them something slightly more interesting about their life, like how many kids they've got. It may sound weird, but it helps you develop a relationship with somebody else. Does that make sense? Inshallah? So that's the aim of the tea and coffee, inshallah. This is not going to finish. So inshallah, Sheikh will do adhan. Are you going to do? Oh, go on. Should be adhan. Yeah, go on, inshallah. Just do it, inshallah.
He kept the food hello? To get this things from the car. My car really stinks. He bought some curry and rice, everything. It's in my car.
Inshallah.
It is this one, it's of the people. So this car is open. You look lost in a second. You can come and
Yeah, you're welcome.
somebody else.
I don't think he's doing adhan.
Okay,
We'll do adhan in a bit.
do you want to do that thing? Because I'm going to do the azan and all the stuff after you. That's nice, I like it. I like that, man, honestly.
He said like the imam should welcome people to come to the mosque. When I came to the mosque, he was complaining about he's also like
There's a car park behind you. There's a car park behind you.
Wait, he parked in my place
What
though.
do you pay for it? It's free after 6 o'clock.
Hey, Russell,
Russell,
you know where my place is, isn't it, at the back?
Yeah.
To park in that first place.
Yeah.
He parked there.
Why are you parking?
he's kind of not there. That's why I thought you were there.
Just in this spot?
Inshallah, we'll do adhan, inshallah.